Pursuant to Section 84-1411 of the Nebraska statutes, notice of this meeting was given on Thursday, March 4th, 2021. Pursuant to that same section of the Nebraska statutes, the next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees will be held Thursday, May 6, 2021 at 4 p.m. in the Board Conference Room, second floor at the Teacher Administrative Center, 3215 Cumming Street, Omaha, Nebraska. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the retirement office at the Teacher Administrative Center during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 84-1412 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Opens Meeting Act is posted in the Board of Education meeting room on the north wall. With that, Cecilia, would you call the roll? Here.
Hirschenbach.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Logan.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Mr. Havlovic is unable to attend, and Mr. Playchuk is unable to attend. So you have 5 present.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Cecilia, you have a copy of the meetings minutes from the March 4th meeting in front of you. I think Cecilia also sent you a copy of that as part of your board packet. Are there any changes, amendments, adjustments to the meeting minutes? All right, seeing none, I'd look for a motion to approve the March 4th, 2021 meeting minutes.
A motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Last call for any amendments. All right, with that, Cecilia, would you call the roll?
Hirschenbach.
Aye.
Logan.
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bourne.
Aye.
5 ayes.
All right, they are approved. I think we're going to adjust the agenda slightly. We're going to take up number 7 because Peter Langdon is online, and he's going to go through the work that he and Cecilia have done on the board policies and procedures manual. And again, Cecilia sent copies of that out to you as well recently. So, Peter, you want to go ahead and...
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Great. Yeah, what we did was we took the policy manual, if you will, that...
Peter, I'm sorry. Now you've kind of faded a little bit, so sorry.
Ask him to yell into the phone.
Sure. We took the policy board, or the policy manual that was utilized by the state, and we took out the irrelevant policies or provisions and then added in policies that were already existing and have already been adopted for OSERS. We then circulated that document, or Cecilia circulated that. Roger had some good comments which were incorporated into the policy manual so that it reads better. Where we stand right now is we have 2 more policies to be added to the manual. One dealing with uncashed checks, which was the topic of, I think it was discussed at the last meeting. And we also need to include a qualified domestic relations order policy that addresses how we handle the division of benefits in the event of divorce. So those are the 2 outstanding policies that are yet to be added to it. But I think we're in good shape. I think it's in very good shape, and there should be absolutely no problem with having it finalized by next month's meeting. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Ray did call yesterday with just a couple of more amendments to the draft. I did not have them incorporated for today, but I can just tell you on page 5, under 4.6, he wanted us to add when the term of office begins, because the term of office begins on July 1. And so we'll add a sentence that references that. And then the other 2, on page 11, the word under Policy 3, Section 2, executive director's specific duties. Subset E, the word that is printed is oversees, and it should be oversee. And oh, I'm sorry, and then back on page 6, there was on section 4.9, to just clarify a sentence by taking out the last phrase in 4.9, just take out from the winner. And then further down, the second to last paragraph, the very last full line, reference participate in the boards instead of its board. And then that was it. So they are very minor grammatical.
Okay. So, Peter, you're still working, you and Cecilia are still working on the other two policies?
Yes, there's still a couple policies that we'd like to add that really came up fairly recently.
Okay. So we can go one of two ways. If people have a level of comfort, we can go ahead and adopt these policies as written. And again, remember, this is in anticipation of the compliance audit RFP that we're going to talk about at the next board meeting. So, or we could approve the policy, give you another chance to look at them and approve these three policies and the other two, or at least discuss them at the next meeting. So, I guess if you have a level of comfort that with the policies or procedures that are in front of us, we'd take a motion to approve them. Otherwise, if there's no motion, we'll take them up again at the next board meeting, and it'd still be fine in terms of timing relative to the compliance audit.
Pat, I'd like a little bit more time to look through them. I just haven't had enough time.
Okay, excellent. So we'll go ahead and we'll just defer this, and we'll put it on the agenda for the May board meeting. And again, there was no issue relative to the timing of going ahead with the compliance audit if the board chooses to do that, to wait to adopt these. So, okay, we're going to lay it over.
Before we move on, I would like to see a clean copy when we come out next time so that we don't see all the changes.
Okay.
So the changes that are going to be that are suggested here, I'd like to see those as part of the copy. We can edit in a single clean copy with the two additional policies that will be prepared for next time. So we have basically a clean copy we can look at. Is that okay?
Yes.
Sounds good. We'll make sure to get that out as soon as possible to give everybody enough time to look them over one last time. Any other discussion on the policies? Peter, Cecilia, board?
I just had a question with Peter. Peter, are these new policies going to be numbered sequentially?
I don't have anything further.
Or are they going to be inserted someplace in the middle of the policy numbers? There was the two policies you're talking about. Is that going to be numbers 10 and 11? Peter, did we lose you?
Mr. Langdon?
I think
yeah.
he's either hung up or we lost him. So Roger, if you and I can talk, and I can send that to Peter, are you here?
I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble hearing.
So the question, can you hear now?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Celia.
Okay, so the question is, with the two new policies that are forthcoming, will they be incorporated into the policy as we see it now, or will they just be added to the end?
Probably be added at the end.
So in other words, Peter, they would be number 10 and 11. Is that the way you're envisioning it?
So the question is, they would be number 10 and 11. Is that the way you're visioning it?
Sure. If you'd like a different sequence, that's absolutely no problem.
Any other questions for Peter? All right, seeing none.
Yeah, quick question. could we get a copy, could you copy this from NPERS? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is there a way I could see the changes that were made between the two documents?
Sure. I may have even created a new version and could do a red line. Let me look into that. If not, there's I can figure that out for us. Yeah.
Okay, and then there's a section on actuarial, I don't know what section it is, policy 7. Have you reviewed these with our actuaries to make sure that all the things are consistent on the actuarial side?
They have not been reviewed by the actuary.
No, it was not given to the actuary, but language and wording was pulled from our valuation report.
Okay, might just be a double check,
Okay.
just a quick, because the language, just want to make sure you get it right. That's all I got.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll get a red line version out from Peter. We'll get a cleaned up version. We'll double check with the actuary, and you'll see it on the agenda
Thank you.
at the May board meeting.
Thank you, Pat.
Any questions as you look at it over the next few weeks? If you just email Cecilia, and she'll get in touch with Peter, and we'll get them clarified. Okay? All right, so let's move on to agenda item number 3, discussion on financial statements from February. Cecilia?
Okay. Financial statements. All right. For the period ending February 28, 2021, the OSERS Trust Fund had a value of $1,423 million, with cash on hand of $13.8 million, or $13,800,000. This is approximately a 7.2% increase from the same time last year. So those are our financials.
Any questions on the financials? Excellent. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 4, discussion on the fourth quarter 2020 investment performance report. Cecilia, would you review that?
The Nebraska Investment Council met on February 11th, where Aon Consulting presented the portfolio performance for fourth quarter 2020. There was an interesting discussion on thoughts regarding inflation in the near future, where Aon was leaning towards low inflation in the near future, and a board member was leaning more towards high inflation in the near future because of pent-up demand. I am kind of sorry these aren't recorded. So time will tell. At the December 31, 2020, the OSERS portfolio ended the year with a value of $1,404 million, which represented a return of 9.4% for the calendar year. And that was 9.2% for the fourth quarter alone. For our portfolio, the asset classes that led the growth were U.S. equities, which were up 20.4% for the year, global equities, which were up 15.1% for the year, and non-U.S. equities, which were 11.3% up for the year. The OSERS legacy investments now represent 21.5% of our total portfolio, and that is down from 55%, which is what we had at 3/31/2016. Effectively, all of what can be liquidated from the legacy investments without incurring any meaningful haircut has already been liquidated. So further transition towards the long-term target weightings will likely be driven through distributions and winding down by the actual managers. Finally, something I took note of, OSERS does not have an allocation to return-seeking fixed income investments, and the NIC is going through a deep dive review of its fixed income managers and investments this year. In fact, it'll be at our retreat in July. So there could be some opportunities for OSERS to take advantage and incorporate more return-seeking opportunities in our fixed income allocation into the portfolio. So, like I said, that will be at our July retreat, and I'll have more information about the July retreat at May or June meeting. Yeah.
Is there a date already?
I don't have the date, and that's why I said I'll have more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions of Cecilia on the fourth quarter investment report? Cecilia, I know you did this at the last board meeting, but could you walk through the process again that we're going to go through over the next few months, with the information relative to the discount rate and all that?
Okay, sure.
Just again to remind the board how that's going to work. Sorry to spring that on you.
Nope, because I had it later in the...
Is it later on?
So at the May meeting, the actuary, Kavanaugh McDonald, will make a presentation on the January 1, 2021 valuation. And then at the June meeting, they will be back to make a presentation on the 2017 through 2020 experience study. And that's when we will look at the various assumptions and determine whether changes need to be made based on their recommendations. And we are on track for the evaluation report, for me to see a draft of it in a couple of weeks, and then I can get it out to the board.
All right. Thank you. Sorry to spring that on you. I just think it's helpful to hear it a few times. Okay, so no question or discussion on the fourth quarter investment report. We'll jump down to agenda item 5, which is a discussion or action legislative report. I did have a brief conversation with Jack Peets earlier this week. He said there's not a lot of lobbyist type activity because the building is kind of shut down. He said that LB 147 is still in committee. That's the bill that deals with the audit, the harmonizing of the separation of service between OPS and the state, or the difference, and also deals with OSERS and where that will ultimately end up. Apparently the committee amendment is drafted, and but LB 147 and the committee amendment is still in committee. Apparently there'll be an executive session sometime next week, and Jack Peets indicated he thought there would be a vote on that bill at that exec session. So other than that, I don't have anything else to report. I don't know if anybody else has questions, comments. Did I leave anything out, Cecilia?
Nope, you covered it.
Okay. No questions, comments? All right. With that, we'll jump down to discussion action on the compliance audit RFP. Remember, we voted last time or asked Cecilia to begin preparation of an RFP for that compliance audit, and she'll give us an update.
Okay, so following the last board meeting, the RFP was issued on Monday, May 8th, 2021. The RFP was sent to 9 firms and posted on the OSERS website. 4 of the firms were the same firms that were used by NPERS, and then we identified 5 of the firms. The RFP provided that questions could be asked of my office through Friday, March 26th. There were 8 sets of questions that were asked of us by the various possible bidders. And those questions and the answers were posted to the OSERS website on Friday, March 26th, late in the afternoon. Responses to the RFP proposals are due to OSERS by 4 p.m. on Friday, April 9th, which is next week. Some recipients of the solicitation have already indicated that they will participate, and I also have had some indication thanking us but declining to participate. Responses are due both in hard copy and electronic form. So last month, Mr. Hirschenbach asked a question, and we thought we might do a committee, but the board president has indicated he wants the full board to review. So I will forward responses out that following Monday. So if I get them all Friday afternoon, I'll work on it over the weekend and forward all the responses out Monday.
So,
That's it.
Unless anybody disagrees with it, I just think it's a better process that everybody on the board has the opportunity to review those RFPs and offer input. And so,
How thick are these RFPs?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how thick they're going to be.
it should be less than a couple thousand pages. I would.
Well,
You may have to get one email for each one.
I'm just wondering how we narrow these down. How many do you think we're going to get back? Just 3?
Maybe.
And the ones who declined because that's...
One referenced the time frame, that it was too short of a time frame for them. Yeah.
And the others just didn't like us?
One felt they couldn't, well, yeah, they just, yeah.
That's weird. Anyway, I'm just wondering how we narrow these down quickly without, going through every detailed item.
So kind of what I was thinking is that after Cecilia sends them out, let it, I kind of reach out to each board member and we can kind of walk through it and just have, just kind of keep the discussion going, call each board member independently and just walk through what, which ones seem more appealing than the others. My guess is there's probably going to be a pretty significant range differential and in terms of pricing and that. So, again, what I thought I'd do is just kind of reach out independently and just to keep the process moving and hopefully be ready to take a vote in that subsequent meeting.
Okay.
And then, of course, staff is going to look at it, and so we'll have our recommendations. I mean, we're going to look at it deeply.
Okay.
It's not like you have a full-time job, Scott, or...
No, I don't mind spending time on it, but it's. I've been through these, and they're difficult to sift through and get valuable information that allows you to make a good decision. And so, it's not an easy task because
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think hopefully we can lean on Cecilia and her staff to kind of help us with some of those things. And matter of fact, I think what we'll do is have Cecilia and I call each board member separately and just kind of walk through it and see, if there's any questions during the time between when they come out and the next board meeting, just to keep the process going.
One, I don't know if this will work or not, but if your team's going to work on it anyway, it would be helpful for your team to rank them or put out this is how we see it, and then distribute that so that we have then we have the ability to say, no, we disagree, and you have at least a starting place versus, and if we all agree, then it's easy. If we don't.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, you good? You're okay with that? Okay. Yeah. That's a great idea, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that the state has a scoring mechanism to use on these things so that the staff scores basically what each of the proposals looks like, the high points and low points, pros and cons. And I'd like to see that, basically what you're asking for, Scott, that we have some sort of idea what the people who know what this process should look like think about the proposals.
Yep, we did discuss that, and we were in the process of obtaining the scoring sheet that NPERS use so that we can follow it. I think you're right. That's a great way to proceed.
And is there any in-person presentations?
Haven't gotten that far, so
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Well, a lot of times it's the people, that makes the difference. Like, just in the way they communicate.
And unfortunately, we may have to do it via video, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Because one is local. Yeah.
What's that?
One is local,
Yeah.
the rest are out of town. Yeah.
Sometimes that is the difference maker. Is, whoever you feel more comfortable with sometimes is the better candidate because they tie on everything else.
And if you have a hybrid, whoever's in person has a advantage.
True.
Right.
Yep, great point. So we can, when I reach out, or when we reach out, we can discuss that. I think that's a great idea. Maybe there's just the top two, or, again, whatever
Yeah.
the board thinks, but,
Well, if you score it and it's an obvious top two, then maybe take top two. If it's,
Yeah.
you can kind of make that call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Just to save time, it's better to just have the top two, I think.
Yeah.
Unless there's a clear top three, and then you would have them in, so.
I agree.
Okay, any other thoughts? Everybody okay with the process? All right, we have a plan. Let's jump down. We did number 7, of course, so let's jump down to the executive director's report. Cecilia?
Okay, so last month, the board approved an accounts payable for $233 for the pension benefit information, which we call PBI. It's the company that scours the data out there in internet land to find deceased people. Okay? Well, since that meeting, and remember I said that our contract had expired. That's why we were put onto a monthly cycle or cost. Since that meeting, we've met with PBI to discuss their new company because they've purchased a competitor and have expanded their services, and thus what is the cost thereof of the new services. We've compared what they've initially quoted us compared to what they have quoted to us for our 5,000 retirees and joint annuitants, compared to the cost of what NPERS is paying for their 95,000 retirees. So we need to have further discussions with them before I bring a contract back to say yay or nay with this company. So
What's the name of the new company?
they're still going by the name of PBI.
And PBI stands for what?
Pension benefit information. Okay. So we're still discussing this. The next thing I want to just keep the board updated on are uncashed checks or uncashed warrants. And Mr. Langdon mentioned it at the last meeting, how that is a hot topic with the Department of Labor. Mm-hmm. And just following up and keeping up with people so you don't have missing participants. And I'd mentioned that every 6 months I ask OPS accounting to just go through and give me a list of any outstanding checks that just haven't been cashed, right? So last time we did it, it was during COVID and things kind of, everybody's working from home and things fell by the wayside. But we are really digging into it this time, and the numbers are not bad at all. On the account payables track, so these are our refund checks and our vendor payments. There were 24 checks that had been issued prior to December 2020. Okay, because that was anything issued in January and February, I didn't, but anything December 2020. And then on the pensioners, there were 5 checks that just hadn't been cashed. Okay. As of this afternoon, of the 5 pension checks, 4 of them contacts been made, and people are like, I didn't realize I didn't cash that check. And of the 20, so staff is working with them and reissuing checks. And working through OPS accounting, so the procedures of signing an affidavit to say that so all that's being handled. Okay. Of the 24 account payable checks and refund checks, there were 4 that were less than $20, $2 and change, $5 and change. We're not following those. 3 checks were vendor checks for a total of $134,792 that is now been put back into the OSERS trust fund. So you're wondering, how is somebody not realizing that much? One check was for a money manager that went out of business just as we transitioned to the Nebraska Investment Council, and they have never, we didn't pay, we wrote a check, it was never cashed. They've never contacted us or the Nebraska Investment Council, so we're reversing it. And then the 2 smaller ones are like dues that the check got lost, so we didn't receive service for that year. So, and then we resumed service the next year when dues were paid. So, those are being reversed. Yeah. 2 checks we were already working on just as this project started. We were already in contact with people, and one was a large check, $50,000, but it was a beneficiary, and we were already working with them. So those 2 checks have been handled. And then there were 14 checks that we actually sent letters out on March 25th, and it is generating phone calls back to the designated person in our office. I didn't realize that was a check. And so we're working with OPS to sign an affidavit and have them reissued. So that project, so hopefully in 6 months, it'll be a cleaner. We did find one check that actually when we issued it out last year, it was returned, but OSERS was not notified, so we worked through some new procedures with OPS, with the accounting department, and so now we can get a heads up and address a return check a lot faster than waiting 6 months later.
So what is the oldest check that was outstanding?
That would have been that 2017. I think it was like February or March of 2017.
And going forward, you'll have processes in place so that nothing gets over how old?
I am asking for a review every 6 months, twice a year.
So you would go through, or somebody would go through once every 6 months and look at checks that haven't been cashed from the prior 6 months.
Correct.
So you would never end up with one that was more than
We shouldn't, unless we just can't
8
find the
months or
person.
something.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, new procedures are in place so that if a check is returned back to the institution, to OPS, that we are notified so we can respond to that.
So that's the same procedure for vendors as pensioners?
If the check is returned, yes. Any returned checks. And the review every 6 months is the same thing.
Just wondering if there's a way, just because of pensioners, I'd want them to get the check sooner. Just if you want to do maybe, I don't know how hard this is, but if there's a way to do it more frequent for pensioners.
You know, most of them are on direct deposit. So
Yeah.
the check, so that's a really good point, because I can think of 2 of the checks. They had closed their direct deposit, and when we get a bounce back from a direct deposit, it automatically converts to a check.
Yep.
And they didn't realize a check was sent to them.
Yep.
Yeah. So we were in contact with them. They just didn't realize the check was sent to them.
Yeah.
Scott, I'm a person who holds checks forever, so
What's that?
I'm a person who holds checks forever.
Yeah. I don't get checks anymore, so
Well,
if they show up in the mail, I don't know what to do with them.
I just hold them, and
Yeah.
then,
Okay.
Okay.
even though I can deposit them on my phone.
So we like I said, we're trying to stay on top of it, and also the communication that if it does come back to the building, we're notified of it.
Okay.
Okay, and then finally, as I said earlier, at the next meeting, Kavanaugh McDonald will be here. The actuary will be here in person. The valuation report, the draft, should be available around the 25th, and I'll get that out to everyone so you can have good nighttime reading. That ends the executive director's report.
Questions for Cecilia?
I do have a question, Cecilia. You'd indicated at one point that you were doing a review of the process of sending out notices for people who are getting payments electronically deposited. What's the status of that study?
Okay. Thank you. Good question. I forgot to put that down. We are still working with the finance department. There were some hurdles that are costly. So we are working on a couple of other ideas, and so everything will stay status quo for now.
Other questions for Cecilia? All right, seeing none, thank you. Move down to trustees report. Is there any comments from the trustees? Seeing none. We'll move down to agenda item number 10, discussion or action on payroll, retirements, deaths, refunds, and accounts payable. Cecilia sent those to the board on March 31st. So rather than kind of go through the clunkiness of the closed session and that, I thought we would you all had a chance to review them. So are there any questions regarding that report?
I can just give a high level. So the payroll for April was $11,199,690 to 5,084 payees. Staff payroll remains the same for the month at $32,300. We will have 9 new retirements for the month of April, which will total $21,514 to the monthly payroll. We experienced 13 deaths that we are stopping the payment in April. 7 were just stopped due to the death of the retiree. 4 will be a continuation to a joint annuitant, and 2 are actually the beneficiary has reached the end of their term certain, so they will stop. So in total, we are going to take off $32,078 of payments, add back on the $6,614,000 of the joint annuitant, so for a net of removing $25,458 from payroll. We processed 42 refunds for the month of April for a total of $486,653. The average is $11,586. will note that we, staff, went through to identify were there any people that we have missed on terminations that did not come through on staff adjustments. And you might notice that there are some very small refunds, and these are due to people who actually came and maybe worked one day and then didn't come back. They were paid for that one day, which means retirement was also taken out for that one day. So, and then finally, fiscal year to date, we have issued roughly $4.6 million in refunds to 306 former members. And finally, accounts payable for the month of April will be $10,409. So with that,
Are there any questions for Cecilia?
I do have a question, unrelated to the report necessarily, but kind of in line with the report. I know that pension payments are done a month in arrears. If someone were to die in May, they would have earned a partial benefit for May. Are they paid for the entire month of May, or are they paid a portion of that month when they get the check in June?
we do pay for the entire month.
Okay.
So we tell the and families do ask, and we tell them that next check is their check. That next direct deposit, keep the account open, and accept the funds, and they are entitled to the whole thing.
Thank you.
All right. Additional questions? Seeing none, Roger, do you have a motion?
I move the Board of Trustees for the month of April ratify pension payments in the amount of $11,199,690.26 to 5,084 payees. Approve staff payroll in the amount of $32,303.18. Approve 9 new retirements effective April 1st, 2021, with the first pension check to be paid in May 3rd of 2021. Ratify the termination of 7 retirements due to the death of the retiree. Termination of 2 retirements due to the term certain end date, and continuation of 4 joint survivorship annuity pensions. Approve refunds of $486,653.70 to 42 former employees and members of OSERS, and approve accounts payable in the amount of $10,409.
All right, we have a motion. Do we look for a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cecilia, would you call the roll?
Logan.
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Hersenbach.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bourne.
Aye. All right, it is approved. We'll jump down to new business. See, we're kind of had a short meeting this one. We're in preparation for next month. I think it's that next month's would go a little long. Is there anything that we're missing from the agenda? Is there anything that you'd like to see on there that's not? And I just mean in general. Seeing none. Any other thing that we need to discuss before we adjourn? All right. Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.